Okay, guys, so it's been a while. I'm actually overseas visiting family. As you can see from my screen, I'm working from a single screen on my laptop using a headset, so please no complaints about sound quality. This is just how it is, and I felt like I just wanted to do something today. Here we go. I'm going to talk today about something I covered in a previous series, which is using a CSS framework built in bricks using bricks, sorry, not bricks, CSS variables. And then also moving into how you would use that to create your own templates. There's been a lot of chatter around about whether templates for bricks, the bricks libraries, also all that sort of stuff, are worth it, or if they're any value. And there is no simple answer to that. To some people, it is great value. To some projects, it is great value. And other times, for me, I prefer to just do it myself without the overhead of a framework. When I say overhead, it could be very beneficial, but it could also be limiting if you're used to working in different ways. So horses for courses. If you work with what works for you, and there are some great frameworks, there are some great template libraries, but there's also some pretty poor ones out there. And the difficulty is deciding which one is which. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to show you a very, very quick setup of creating your own CSS variable framework in Bricks, and then creating some templates that you can then use for this project, for other projects, and build up your own library as you go using a very consistent approach. I'm going to build the templates in Bricks using the Bricks UI because it's quicker. I typically, when I'm creating them for myself, I would use the CSS tab and put everything in there, so it's more, I guess, localized. Everything's all in the right place. But I need to get through this video, so I'm going to just use the Bricks UI. Okay, enough talking. So I'm using Bricks. Just double check here. Yep, Bricks 1.11.1.1, and today is the 29th of the 11th, 2024. So if you're watching in the future, some things in Bricks may have changed. Okay, let's get into it. So if I go to my pages, I have a test page here. If I edit that with Bricks, you will see that I have no plugins whatsoever enabled. I've just got pure Bricks. No automatic CSS, no advanced theme, no core framework, just pure Bricks. And all I've done is added a section and container to the editor, and this is my starting point. So the first thing we need to do is create a bit of a framework to work from. You should always, always, always use a framework, whether it's one you create or whether it's a external one like Core or ACSS or Tailwind or whatever you prefer. You should always use a framework because it keeps things consistent and much, much easier. And Bricks has made it more and more easy to do that as they've increased their versions. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is look at our CSS variables. In here, I have only a single class, which is test. The only reason I have that is because Bricks will not let you save your classes unless you have one in there. So test has nothing on it. And then we've got some variables there, which we've got none of. And this is where we're going to start working. So let's start by starting using a space. We're going to create a category called space. I'm going to click on space. As a little trick, if you don't click on the category, the variables you create here go into uncategorized. So make sure you click on the actual category here. And with, if you haven't seen my previous series, which is a bit of a mess because I kind of just jumped in and did it and didn't think about it until afterwards. But I did a quick series on creating these variables, and this is really just pulling it all together. So I always, always, always use FW as a prefix to say this is my framework. Okay, you can use whatever you like, but it makes sense for me to use FW. And you'll notice on the left here, the two dashes, Bricks automatically adds the two dashes to variables, so you don't add two dashes here because that would be incorrect. So we just use FW. I'm going to call this my space multiplier. And on my space multiplier, I'm just going to make that a 1.7 because I know that works quite well. Change it to whatever you like, and we'll save that. We're then going to do an FW, and we start with our medium. So we're going to do space. And because we're using medium, large, extra large, all that sort of stuff as variations, I'm going to use the BEM modifier syntax, which is the two dashes, and then I'm going to use the M for medium. So in BEM. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Search for BEM or block element modifier on the internet, and you'll find lots of information on that. So a block is separated by a single dash. A modifier has two dashes. So I'm using the same methodology, even though it doesn't specify this for variables. I'm using exactly the same methodology. So I'm just going to copy that to the clipboard, hit save, paste it in there, and I'm going to do a medium. I'm going to do a small, save. Leave all those blank for the moment. I'm going to do an extra small. We're going to do a large. Do a XL. I'm going to do an XXL. Okay. All right, so let's say we're going to use just fixed values for now. We'll come back and make this responsive a little bit later. So let's say my medium, I want to be 2 rem, 2 rem. Okay, my small is going to be my calc of my variable space M. So we have to use the 2 dashes here because Bricks automatically adds the 2 dashes, but when we're typing it in here, we need to make sure our variables have the 2 dashes here. So it's going to be that divided by the var of our space multiplier. Again, 2 dashes. And we don't have enough screen real estate here, and I've got to close that bracket off. Do not put a semicolon here because this is just a value, and we don't want to put a semicolon there because we could use this anywhere in a property. So this is just a value. Do not put a, let me just double check all that. So I've got open, 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 close, close, close. Yes, got the right amount of brackets there. All right, so that's that there. So I'm going to do a Control A or Command A if you're on a Mac, copy that, go to my space XS, and I'm going to change this to be my small divided by the multiplier. How brilliant is that? Okay, then we're going to go to the large, and we're going to do our medium times the multiplier. Okay, I'm going to do a Control A, Control C, paste that in here, and we want that to be our large times the multiplier. And then we want to do a Control V in here, and we want that to be our XL times the multiplier. So we're just multiplying up and dividing down to get what we need. Okay, so that's that. Now, while we're in the spacing, we might as well add some other spaces like gaps. So I'm going to add a FW. I'm going to call this my grid gap. And notice with these aren't variations. These are actual variable names, not variations of grid gaps. So you might have a grid gap large, grid gap small if you wanted to do it that way. This is just my standard grid gap, so I don't need the double dash there. So my FW grid gap, I'm going to make that my, for now, I'm going to make it the space L. So var dash dash space L. Okay, we're going to do FW content gap. And we'll grab that variable there. And maybe we'll make that the space, I don't know, space M, that'll do. We can change these later. Save that. So now we've got a grid gap, content gap, and a whole bunch of spaces there. I think we're done with our spacing for now. And again, the beauty of this is you can come back and add to it and change it as you add at will. Now I'm going to create some topography. Okay, now create that, and as I said, you've got to click on topography, otherwise your variables will be created on the last thing that you clicked on. So in our topography, we're going to do an FW. We'll call this text, make it a bit briefer. Text multiplier. And we'll make that a 1.333. I think they call that a perfect third. I'm not sure. Save that. And we're going to do it the same as what we did with the other one. We're going to do it FW text dash dash M, so the modifier or variation of medium. And we're going to make that we'll make that 1.8 rem, so 18 pixels. With bricks is based on, by default, it's based on 10 pixels as 1 rem. So we're going to make it 18 pixels as our default. Then we're going to grab this, copy that, paste that there. So we want a text small. I don't know if we need a text extra small. I don't think so because we don't really go that small with text. So we want to do a text large. Again, you can add that extra small if you wish to. It's entirely up to you. XL, and then we'll do an XXL. Okay, and our text small is going to be our calc of our text M. Divided by our var of the text multiplier. Okay, so then we're going to copy that to the clipboard, and we're going to hope to hell, actually there you go, I made a mistake there. Yeah, I just put the FW text multiplier. That will not work because we need the 2 dashes because it's a CSS variable, which gets confusing because you don't type it in here, Bricks automatically adds that for you. So we'll copy all of that. And I'll leave all my mistakes in so you can see exactly where I'm making mistakes and having to correct them as well. So we're going to use the text to the text L. It's going to be text M times. We're not doing an XS, so we're just doing that text X times multiplier. So we're going to go from medium to L by multiplying the M by the multiplier. Okay, we're going to paste that in there, and we want to do our text L. XL will be our text L times the multiplier. Text XXL will be our text XL times the multiplier. Okay, so that's some text sizes. We'll then add some, I guess you call them utility variables for our heading. So I'm going to call that FWH1. Each one will start with the text XXL. So I'm going to do var. Check here, I didn't put any semicolons accidentally there. No, I didn't. Great. Okay, and we're going to grab that name, copy that, paste it in there. That'll be a 2. And there, that'll be a 3. And the beauty of doing this is you only have to do this once. Once you've done this, you can save it, you can export it, you can create a blueprint site, you can add to it. You've got complete control over this beautiful little piece of code in Bricks. So make that our XL, make that our L, and we'll make that, I can see my mistake already, if you guys haven't spotted it, we'll make that our M. H4 will be our M, and again I forgot to put the 2 dashes in front of the variable because I just copied the variable name from the Bricks up here. There we go, we've got dashes, we've got those. I'm rushing through this. There's bound to be some mistakes in here which we'll find in the front end, or in the editor when we start looking. And a couple other variables I'm going to create here is the line height. So I'm going to do FW text line height. And we can come back again and change these later. I'm going to make that just 1.5. And we'll do the FW heading line height. We'll make that 1.3. There we go. We can change these later. All right, there's our topography. I don't think we need anything else on there. We'll manage all our colors and everything through the theme. Just save that to make sure we don't lose it. Okay, what else do we need? We need some grids. Every framework needs some grids. So grid. Save that, and then click on the grids category. And we're going to do I think we did the grid gap up here, didn't we, in our spacing? We did a grid gap, so we just need the actual grids themselves. So let's do a FW grid, and we'll do our modifier of 1. Okay, so we're in a grid of 1, and that will be a min-max of 0, 1 FR, and that is our grid 1. Okay, we're going to do actually copy that, do a grid 2, 3, I'll just do up to 6 here. You can add the others as you go. I would do 4, 5, 6, and let's do a grid 1, 2, and we'll do a grid 2, 1. Again, you can add to these later. Okay, so for copy that min-max, for a grid 2, we want to repeat. twice of our min-max 2FR. So we want to repeat twice the min-max 0, 1FR, so give us a 2-column grid. Copy that, paste it into there, and make that a 3. There, make that a 4. Make that a 5. And make that a 6. And then what we're going to do here is just going to grab that first one. So there's a 1FR and a 2FR. And this one's going to be a 2FR and 1FR. So we're going to have a 2 fraction, 1 fraction grid and a 1 fraction, 2 fraction grid. Okay, save. Now I think we've covered our bases for a basic framework here. I'm not going to do utility classes for buttons and whatnot in this particular video. This is just going to be the CSS variables. When you come to things like buttons and badges and things like that, you need utility classes because they have more than one property. CSS variables are good for a single property, not multiple properties. You have multiple properties like you need with buttons. You need to create utility classes for those buttons. So there is our setup. Save that. We'll just make sure we save in bricks here so we don't get messed up. Okay, now we've got our base variable framework. Now we need to set it up. So if I have a look at my settings and go into my theme styles, I've got a default theme with conditions on entire website and nothing else set. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to my section. Actually, I'm going to go back and create another set of variables. Just remembered. So I'm going to space. We're going to create some section padding stuff here so we can use those variables when we're calculating overlays and things like that. So I'm going to do an FW section padding block, and we're going to make that our we'll make that our space XL. That'll do. And we're going to make a FW section padding inline, which you can also call gutter, and that's going to be a var. Let's make that our space small and not put that semicolon in. So we got a section padding section in block and inline. This is just to keep the naming making sense across the site. Add those, save that, save. So we go back to our section. Where's our section? Our section is here. Okay, all we want to do on here is go and link our sides, and we're going to start typing section. And there's our section padding block. Okay. We're then going to go to our one there. We're going to do section. We're going to section padding inline. Okay, we're not seeing any change here for some reason. If we're going to actually save that, I might just stick a text in there or a heading in there so we can see it and have a look on the front end and see what is actually not working there. What is it not referencing properly? So as I said, I'm probably going to make some mistakes because I'm rushing through this. So if we look at our section, these are not set. Why are they not set? Maybe I go here and I go to my section padding. There we go. I made the same mistake again. Dash, 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 dash. I'm rushing through copying things, so you've always got to prefix your variables with the dashes. Okay, and then we're fixed. Okay, so we've got some padding at the top, padding on the sides, which we'll also call our gutter. We can rename that to gutter if you want to. I prefer to leave it as a section padding inline because that's pretty much where I'm going to use the gutter. Okay, right, so that is that part done. Let's go back to our theme settings and go to typography, and for the body we're going to set our text size to text. So this is all the variables we've just created. I'm going to set that to our text M. And we're going to set the line height to our text line height. Okay, we're going to do the same on the headings. Not going to change the size because we will change that on each one. We're just going to set the line height, text, not text, sorry, heading. Heading line height. There we go. Done. This is all native bricks. I'm not adding any plugins whatsoever to do this. So you go to our heading, and I'm going to start typing H, and there's our headings. We're going to set that to heading 1. Go to our heading 2, H, heading 2, H, heading 3, heading 4, H, heading 4. Okay, there is our headings done. So let's just check that by adding some more. 1, 2, 3. Make that a heading 1, a heading 2. That's a heading 3, which it already is, and a heading 4. Okay, so we've got our heading being spaced correctly. So that's our base, which is the base level, and then it's multiplying up from there. So let's say we want less of a less of a difference between our headings, but we want them to be generally bigger. We just go back to our CSS variables here. We go into topography, and let's say we actually want that variation to be a little bit less, but we want to start with, say, 2.4. So let's start bigger. So our H4 is going to be 2.4 rem, but we're only going to multiply up by 1.2 for each one. So I'll save that. Come back, and we can see our heading 4 is bigger, but we get less of a variation from our heading 4 all the way up to our heading 1. Okay, so that is pretty much how you would do this. Now, you can also make this responsive. So we've only done the fixed values by using the, well, we'll go back to it. So we used our multiply and our text M as being 2.4 rem. In our space, we see our space M as 2 rem. What you can do here is use a calculator. I'm using the CSS calculator here. You can just search for them online. And what I'm saying here is for our topography, I want it to be, do it topography first. So we want our topography to be 16 pixels, so 1.6 rem in bricks, because it's a base of 10 pixels as 1 rem. I want to be 16 on a mobile, which is basically we're going to say is anything at 400 or less. We want to be 16 pixels. And at 1,000 or more, so desktop, we want it to be 18 pixels. So pretty simple, and that creates this clamp for us. So we just copy that clamp, go back to our CSS variables. Instead of this 2 rem, we put our clamp there. All right. We do the same for our spacing. Let's say for our spacing, we want that to be, say, 2 rem, so 20 pixels at our for the medium, at our at 400 or less wide, and let's say we want it to be 30 pixels at 1,000 or more. So we get a variation of 10 pixels between the bigger size and the smaller size. So we do that, copy our clamp to the clipboard, back to our builder, go spacing. In fact, I think I put that on the wrong one. I did. I'm going to come back to that. So I put spacing, that there. We have to do our font one again. So I'm on the topography here. Let's do our topography again. So topography we had at 1.6, adding up to, what do we say, 1.8. Copy that to the clipboard, get back to our topography, multiply our text M, and put that there. Okay, so now we have responsive topography and responsive spacing by changing one value. And the reason this works is because all of the other values are a calculation based on that value. So that works really, really beautifully. Okay, what happened there? We lost our headings. Ooh, I've got, what did I do there? I've constantly make this mistake. Sorry, I went 20 and 30. So I want 2 and 3, not 20 and 30. Often doing this, I'm thinking in pixels when I'm supposed to put rems in. So my spacing I messed up. It should be 2 rem and 3 rem. So I'm going to copy that, go back to my editor here and into my variables, and on my spacing, I'm going to see it goes there. It's got 30 rem. So we're just going to put that clamp in there. There we go. So that's a correct clamp. So our minimum is 2 rem, maximum is 3 rem, and then we've got this responsiveness in the center. Okay, there. Okay, now look at our heading there. So if I look at that on the front end, what we see, here's our sizing there. If I look at that heading and then look at my font size, here goes my font size, 31 pixels. We'll go into responsive mode here. And what we'll see is that we've got 1386 pixels. What happens is when I get down to, I'm at 10048, and I can see my font size is still 31, get below 1000, and it starts dropping. You can see down on the right hand side, drops all the way down until we get to 400 below. So below 400 pixels, we've now got a font size of 27.6. If we go below 400, that doesn't decrease because we set our calculation to be between 400 and 1000. You can see the font size is actually decreasing very slightly, and the actual space, look at the heading spacing in the section. If you look above the text, you see as we go bigger, we get more spacing. As we go smaller, we get less spacing. So it's fully responsive with both text and spacing just by changing two variables, so the space M and the text M, the clamps, using an online clamp generator. Okay, that's it. That's done. That is our framework ready to go. I mean, you can add in things like radiuses and box shadows and whatever. You just create new categories, add the things that you want in there, and you build up your own framework. Okay, so how do we use this framework to create our own templates and template library? So I'm going to spot here, I'm going to mark here because this is really a two-part video, I guess. The first part is about getting your framework set up, and you can save this and reuse this. You don't have to do this every single time. Okay, so that's set up. Now I'm going to clear my browser, and I am going to just add a section, and in that section I'm going to add a block. When I do these, I always start with a block for my templates, and the reason for that is that it's easier to use it wherever you want. So you can use it as a container, you can use it as a section, you can use it as a block. All you have to do is decide where to put it or change the element type based on where you're going to use it. So I always start with a block. Okay, so this block, we're going to create a content to col. I'm just going to call it content to col, and that content to col needs to have two more blocks, which will be our cell 1 and our cell 2. Okay, then that cell 1 and cell 2, we're going to give this some BEM class names. Now, I don't have any plugins installed, so I can't use the BEM creator from Automatic CSS or from Advanced Seamer, so I'm going to have to manually type these in. So I'm just going to type that in here. I don't think got a space there, I did. So any spaces you need to put, you've got you name that. If you want it to match, if you have a space, you need a dash. So to col. Okay, and I'm going to copy this to the clipboard so that I can use that to name my element. So the cell 1, paste, underscore cell 1. That's the cell 1 is an element of the content to col block. Okay, create that. And do the same with this, underscore cell 2. All right, so now we've got a class structure on there. We need to actually do something with that. And again, I would normally, the way I create my libraries, I use the CSS styles here, and I create all of my styling there. But I'm going to rush through this because otherwise we're going to be here all day, and I'm going to use the Bricks UI for this instead. So I'm going to go into my display. I'm going to set that to be a grid. I'm going to use my gap. See these gaps here? That's the variables we just created in Bricks. So we're going to use our grid gap, and I want to use my grid of 2. There is our grid. Okay, now on our cells now, that is basically all we need, right? So let's go into our cell 2, and we'll put a image in there. I'll just stick an image in there, and look, you might do this differently. It's up to you. I'm just going to call that media. Oops, yeah, media, and let's just select an image. Okay, that's the image. Okay, so someone bugging me here. Okay, and I'm going to grab my content to col name here, copy that to the clipboard, and I'm going to call that media. Okay, so we've got a name for that now as well. And on that, while I'm here, that has got the class. I'm going to set by aspect ratio. No, I'm not going to set the aspect ratio. I'll just leave it as it is. We can set an aspect ratio and fill here if we want to. I'm just going to leave that as it is for now. What I might do is just set a border radius on here with our border, like that. And I'll just use my sizing at the moment. So I'm just going to use space. I'll just use the XS space for that. Again, you can create a radius uh, variable if you want to. It's up to you. I'm just going to use the space M for now, so it's nice and simple for me to do. Okay, now in this cell 1, I'm going to create another set of elements in here. Now, the way I'm working is I'm using I guess a theory or a way of working called atomic design. The best I understand it, at least anyway. And what we want to do is we want to create, basically, we want to create atoms, we want to create molecules, and then we want to create patterns. Okay, so an atom really is for me, it's a single element that you've given some properties. A molecule is a collection of elements that you've given some properties, and then your pattern is those collections applied to a greater thing, like for example, this whole layout for column 2 col, that might be a pattern. I'm going to just show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to create a block in here, and that didn't add for some reason. There we go. I've got a block in there. I'm going to call this my intro v1. Okay, this is my intro, not space. Intro v1. Inside my intro v1, I am going to have a heading, I have some basic text, and I'm going to have a button. Okay, I'm not going to worry about styling buttons in this video. In there, so we're going to call that just that intro text. All right, let's give this a name. So I'm going to grab that top level there. I'm going to call that intro v1. I've got a space there, no, v1. Copy that to the clipboard. Save. And then my heading, I'm going to make that an element. Heading. Text. Make that text. And my button. Okay, so we've got some names there. Now, what I would typically do here is I would then go to that top level there, and I'll put in brackets what I think this should be. I think this is a molecule because it's got a block which has got 3 parts to it. So I'm going to call that a molecule. I'll just use MOL as my hint. That's a molecule. Okay. On the content 2 call, that is a pattern because it's got other elements in there and it's got molecules in there as well. So I'm going to call that a pattern. So I'm going to do PAT. And again, this is just my interpretation of the atomic design. Yours might be different, and that's completely fine. Okay, so here it is there. And what we want to do is go to our intro, make sure our class is selected. Again, we're going to use the Bricks UI here, and we're going to put a row gap there of gap, content gap. There's our content gap there. All right, we might go to the cell 1, and while that cell 1 is selected, we might align the main axis to the middle, and there's our axis in the middle there. Okay, so now what we have is 2 templates that we can save. So the first one I'm going to do is this intro v1. I'm going to right click on that. I'm going to save as template. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to check one setting in Bricks because there's a cool new feature in Bricks I may not have enabled in this dummy site. Bricks settings. Oops, not to get started. The settings. Go to templates. Yeah, enable your template screenshots and enable your template thumbnail for the purpose of this video. Okay, I'm going to go back and refresh this page just in case you need to do that, because sometimes you do need to do that with Bricks. Okay, let's go back to our molecule. So our intro v1, a molecule. Right click. I'm going to save it as a template. Given the name already, template type should always be a section for these. Doesn't make semantic section. It's not actually an HTML section. It's just a section of content. We don't have any template types at the moment, so we're going to just save that as a template there. Okay, and we see it's automatically created our thumbnail for us. Go back, and then we're going to go to the content to-col, and we're going to save that as a template, and it's already given the name. Template type is a section. Save as template. Done. Save. Back to our templates now, and we'll see that we have the two templates there. But in the first one, we want that to be a pattern. On that second one, we want it to be a molecule. So we go to our quick edit, and we make this a pattern. And once we've done this, this will become available in the Bricks UI to be able to select when you're saving them. So do a quick edit here. I'm going to make that a molecule. Okay, update that. And there is our first two reusable templates using the CSS framework that we just created. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to kill that. I'm going to save, refresh the page. So we've got completely empty editor. And we're going to start from here. Okay, so I'm going to add a section. In that section, and by the way, Bricks never puts these in the right place. I'm then going to go to my templates. See my templates there. I've got the two templates I've just created. Got the bundles there. I can just look at my molecules. I can just look at my patterns, and you can arrange this however you want. Okay. So now I'm going to grab the to-col pattern. I'm just going to insert that, and there we go. It doesn't put it inside the container, so we can put that inside the container if we want to have that template inside the container, or if we don't, we can take it outside of the container, put it there, and then just right click on it and then convert it to a container. So by putting it in a block, it's just where you'd mostly use it. And if you want to use it in a container, you just change it using the Bricks UI. How brilliant is that? So now we've got a content section with our pattern, which is our to-col, and we've also got a molecule on the left-hand side here. Now, one thing we didn't do, and this is the beauty of the class system, is we didn't look at what happens at our responsive views. So what we can do is have a look here at our content there and make sure our content to-col is selected, and then see what happens when we get to our mobile landscape now. Well, it's still okay, but what happens when we get to our portrait? That's way too skinny. So we want to change that to be a grid of 1. Why didn't you change? It should have changed. Let's see what's happening. It could be an error in my grid settings. Let's have a look here. Have a look at the grid. Yeah, I'm going to leave these errors in here because we need to know grid 2. Oh, there we go. So I've just realized that when I've created the template, I've put the settings here on the actual ID, not on the class, which is a common thing to happen. So it's good that that actually happened here because you can see where the problem is. So if we go back to our content here and get rid of that, we've actually put that on the ID, which we don't want. So let's get rid of that from there and go to the actual class, and we'll put it on the class grid gap, and we want a grid of 2. So we put it on the class instead, and now when we go through to here, then that's going to work because the ID will override the class. There we go, we just fixed that up. So there we go, that is how you would use these to create your own reusable templates. Out of this one example, we've created an entire pattern, and we've also created a molecule, which is just this heading that you could use anywhere you like. Next time we look at this, we can look at the modifiers to change the behavior of these patterns, but that's pretty much what you would do. Now, one thing, because we've done that, we might have to go back to the actual templates because I messed that up. Templates, we're going to have to go back into our content to-col, edit that, and go to our top level here. And with that not selected, we need to take that off the template as well because we've actually put those onto the class here as well. So otherwise, we just messed up the template. All right, so that's it. That is how you would create your own little mini framework in Bricks, how you'd apply it to patterns and molecules, save those as reusable templates, and build this up as you go. So you do not need template libraries to do this kind of thing. You can create your own patterns, create your own stuff as you go, and it's not that difficult once you get into it. So I'm going to leave it here, and if you like this sort of thing, hit the subscribe and hit the like. Thanks, guys.